Contacted them again. Long story short, they had Don's social security number listed for Brody. We're using his hours as the basis for the claim. Leanne has been dogged about getting this cleaned up and corrected once and for all. Website updates. Will be refreshing our website in the near future with new pictures, including some drone shots and perhaps simplifying the navigation somewhat. We're also looking into setting up a webcam from our security cameras. Old business, as Oyster House. As you know, our funding request for this project was included in the final capital budget. We were awarded $344,000 to complete the project. However, we're still waiting on the Army Corps permit so we can take out the launch ramp when the fish window opens later this week and start driving pilings. Bill Ray expected the Army Corps permit before the fish window opens, but since it opens on Thursday, we're still in a holding pattern. I'm trying to get a clarification from the state on whether or not our existing hydraulic permit will allow us to do that instead of waiting on the Army Corps permit, but I don't have an answer yet. Sweetwater Park, as you know, this project didn't make the cut for WWRP funding as the legislature didn't fund as far down the list as the project was rated. We received a solicitation for grant applications from the Land and Water Conservation Fund. RCO has encouraged us to apply. Mindy Harlow at Salmon Center is handling the application. We also received a letter from the DOT that they'll be doing stream channel restoration on Sweetwater Creek, which involves replacing the existing culvert under Highway 3 with a new fish passage structure in order to remove the existing fish barrier. They'll need access to our property for this project, which we have granted. Transient Moored Expansion Project. This project is complete. It's been closed out with almost $54,000 in reimbursements turned into the Department of Commerce along with the final paperwork. I'm happy to we received those reimbursements this morning. We completed the project early and returned a little over $30,000 we were awarded in the grant but didn't use to the state. So the bottom line is we completed this major project, including all of the unexpected challenges like replacing the entire dock, plus added the camera system on time and approximately 9% under budget. All ports meeting, the next meeting will be on July 26th at the Port of Brownsville at 6:30 p.m. This will be an in-person meeting with a potluck style barbecue beforehand. Everyone, commissioners and staff are invited to attend. Criminalization of marina rules. Commissioner Jackson is working with the sheriff to move this forward. Now the cameras are in place. And that is my report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, I don't have any questions for you. We can go on to new business if you have any other things that you want to talk about, commissioners. No? You guys are muted, by the way.
I'm sorry, Judy, but I hope everybody understands what House Bill 1310 did for law enforcement. It stifled action to a lot of in-progress crimes. And I can tell you, the sheriff is not going to respond to the court. So I think what we need to do is focus on our cameras, focus on Travis, and get rid of the criminalization rules. And if you haven't read the bill, I appreciate you reading the bill. It's House Bill 1310.
Yep, I read it.
Can he explain why there's not going to respond to the port?
Because they can't.
Because
they
there's so
can't.
many other high priority crimes that they need to respond to. So it's just like a little fire district not responding to a small fire. They're going to respond to the fire, the bigger fire. So.
Okay, where you see a crime,
Okay.
we see a crime occurring on port property, would call 911. You're saying they won't show up?
Well, Brad,
take a look at the bill.
Brad, we need to move on.
Please take a look at the bill.
Yeah. Let's go to new business. We have a presentation from the port's lobbyist on potential projects to seek funding for. Where are there? Holly, there you go. And you're muted. There we go. Welcome, Holly. Thank you very much for attending. And we appreciate.
Of course.
Okay. So go ahead.
Will do. Larry, do you mind giving me permission to share my screen?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to do that actually.
So the top right corner of my photo, you'll see 3 dots. Click on that and you should be able to.
Here we go. Yes.
Got it?
Let me find it. Mute, stop video chat, pin spotlight
Yeah.
for everyone, make host.
You
That's
may
the
have to
perfect
just
example.
make me the host and I'll make you the host when I'm done.
There you go.
Perfect
Okay.
example of the student becomes the teacher.
That's it.
Bill Stefan wants to enter. Can I admit him?
Go ahead.
I have all the controls now. Okay, 1 second here.
Ooh, you're in charge.
All right, can everyone see that?
Yes.
Great. Okay, so good evening, commissioners. Thank you for providing me with some time to present to you all today. Again, my name is Holly Kochi. I am the Ports Governmental Affairs Consultant. It sounds like you all received my lengthy report from Larry today. I would encourage you to review if you haven't already done so, and feel free to email me with any questions you may have. Specifically, the section regarding priority options to consider, which I will obviously go over today, but it would be helpful for you to review after our conversation. Since we, have already had a couple months into the interim since session ended, it will be important for us to identify our next short-term and long-term legislative priorities and do all that before we can brief our legislative delegation and others, but we want to do that as early as possible. So to begin, I'll be sharing a high-level overview of session, which I will go over very, very quickly so I can dedicate a bulk of my time with you all to discuss our success this session and priority project options to consider as we begin to plan for next session. I have included a more in-depth synopsis of what occurred this session within the report you received. So please do take a look if you are curious, and if you have any questions, even on House Bill 1310, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me at any time. And then closing, I will go over next steps for us to tackle. So to start us off and to give everyone a refresher, the legislature operates on a 2-year cycle that aligns with the state's biennial budgets. This year was the first session of the 21-23 biennium, lasting 105 days. It began on January 11th and ended on time on April 25th. This year, the legislative session was almost completely virtual, as you all know. Just like everybody else, the legislature had to adapt to the pandemic environment and did so successfully. A total of 1,075 bills were considered, which is significantly fewer bills in a normal session and is evidence of the impact of a virtual format. They ultimately passed 334 bills, which is a little less than the average during our typical long session. But all in all, the virtual setting really did not stop them from moving bills forward. The Democrats continued to hold the majority in both the House and Senate. Another reason why bills moved forward fairly quickly. They were able to advance a great deal of bills aligning with their agenda, which focused on climate change, responding to COVID-19, racial inequality, economic recovery, police reform, the list could go on. Any legislation that was introduced but did not pass will be reintroduced during the second year of the biennium. So in this case, all bills from the session that did not make it to the finish line will be reintroduced and reconsidered next year in 2022. So in addition to all of the bills that were considered, the legislature also invested a great deal of time towards developing and passing the 3 budgets for the biennium. So that is the operating, capital, and transportation budgets. All 3 budgets operate on the same cycle. So for this biennium, the budgets will take effect on July 1 of 2021. So they've already taken effect and go until June 30th of 2023. So when the legislature comes back in 2022, they will be making amendments essentially to the biennial budgets they adopted this session. So moving on to the first budget, the operating budget funds all state agency operations. This is typically the one you hear most in the media. Going into the legislative session, it was feared that this budget had severe fiscal impacts due to COVID-19, and then the legislature would need to make significant cuts. However, there were several unexpected but fortunate things that occurred that made this not the case. The first being that in March, so a few months into session, the revenue forecast showed revenue collections were expected to rebound to pre-pandemic levels. And I will note, since then, the June revenue forecast has come out and the state economic recovery remains strong. It is projected to receive over 2.2 billion in additional revenues over the remainder of the 2019-21 biennium, which ended June 30th, and through the 21-23 biennium, which began July 1st. The government approved the American Rescue Plan, and the state received 4.25 billion that will need to be spent by 2024. And those funds can be spent and were spent on the operating, capital, and transportation budgets. All in all, this was a real significant infusion of funding for the state budgets. Additionally, the legislature chose to enact a capital gains tax. While that is likely to be challenged through the court process, if upheld, it will generate $415 million for the operating budget. So all of these components led to an overall operating budget of 59.2 billion, which is approximately 3.2 billion more than the previous biennial budget. Within this budget, there are historical levels of investment in housing, childcare, small business support, and much, much more. There's not enough time to go over the numerous investments. So that's just a taste of what is included. And additionally, over $1 billion was held in reserves. So moving on to the capital budget, this budget funds public and nonprofit construction projects, excluding transportation. This is the budget that the port most frequently requests funding within, and structurally it is funded by bonds that derive from a portion of the operating budget that I just discussed. So this year, the legislature issued 3.9 billion in bonds. Of that 3.9 billion, 80 million of that has been reserved for the supplemental budget. So what we'll consider next session, that they will utilize a portion of the $4.25 billion in federal funds to add to their bond revenue. So the $589 million of stimulus funds were tacked on to that 3.9 billion in bonds, resulting in one of the largest capital budgets the state has created in recent history. I will talk about how this large investment benefited the port directly here shortly. But to move on to the third is the transportation budget, which is by far the most challenging of the three budgets. Similar to the operating, going into session, it was predicted that there would be a significant revenue shortfall due to the impacts of the pandemic. And unlike the operating budget, the transportation budget revenue was not forecasted to go back to pre-pandemic levels. A major component to this revenue shortfall is the decline in gas tax revenue collections and toll revenue collections. So they continue to be down from what was forecasted prior to the pandemic. And to further further financial obligation to this budget, the state had been mandated by the Supreme Court order to replace all state-owned culverts. So because of the revenue shortfalls, the culvert mandate, and the need for further investments in new transportation projects, there really has been a robust discussion around a transportation revenue package. And really, as the session carried on, the discussions on a revenue package became integrated into the conversations on a cap and invest system and a low carbon fuel standard. So those three elements began to be referred to as this grand bargain, with the idea that legislators could support all three components moving forward in an integrated fashion. So to further solidify this trio agreement, the legislature approved a cap and invest and a low carbon fuel standard that included language to make the enactment of the proposals contingent upon the passage of a revenue package that would at least increase the gas tax by 5 cents. In June, the governor vetoed the language connecting those two policies to the development of a transportation revenue package. So thereby really breaking that grand bargain. And many legislators on both sides of the aisle have shared their disagreement with this action and are questioning whether this veto was overstepping his authority. So this may likely be challenged in court. All in all, a transportation revenue package did not pass this session, and it is somewhat unknown whether one will be finalized in the near future. At the end of session, there was a lot of discussion around a special session later this year to finalize a package. There still is likely the timeline would be around October or November, and that it could still certainly be a possibility, but waiting until 2022 or even 2023 session is also a possibility. So a lot is up in the air at this point. For the current law budget that passed, the legislature adopted a $11.7 billion budget that utilized $1 billion in federal funds to backfill the revenue that was lost due to the pandemic. The budget also received replenishment of funds that were eliminated due to the $30 car tab initiative, so I-976 passing. The courts overturned this ruling prior to session, so that allowed the legislature to return about $450 million that had been withheld back into the transportation budget. Just a side note, I know the Ports Association just recently added weekly transportation updates for members to read. So that is a great way to receive updates more frequently. Things are changing constantly. And of course, you can always reach out to me as well. So that was a lot to absorb. But considering the intense session we had, that was about as condensed as I could make it without excluding the major events that occurred regarding the budgets. So I will move on. Our biggest priority this session was to receive the final portion of funds needed to complete the Oyster House restoration project. And we accomplished this, which is fantastic news. I put this simple timeline up just to illustrate the incremental successes throughout the past 3 sessions on this project. But all in all, and as you heard from Larry, the final budget included $344,000, and it is locked in, and the port can now pivot its focus onto other priorities to seek funds for. I'll just touch on this really quickly since it was addressed from Larry in his report, but the port also identified and made the delegation aware of the RCO grant that the port applied for in partnership with the PNW Salmon Center. So the project was ranked 60th, and like Larry said, the legislature did not fund the RCO enough to reach this rank on the WWRP list. So I'll touch base on this when we get into possible future priorities, but unfortunately we did not receive the grant for the project this year. So now that we have a major project checked off the priority list, it will be up to all of you to decide and identify what legislative priorities we can tackle next. I have worked with Larry on the list below that you're seeing right now, and we'll briefly go over them. But before I do, I just want you to keep some things in mind. Being hyper-focused. So as we have seen, focusing our efforts on the Oyster House came with success. And as we kept our messaging consistent with legislators and we followed through until the end. And prioritizing something and switching that up year after year is not going to be helpful in maintaining the attention and the desire for the state to invest in the port. So just something to keep in mind. Viable proposals that take advantage of the current political environment. We obviously have a delegation that is currently in the minority and only has so much authority right now at this point. So keeping in mind that when you select a priority, taking into consideration the priorities the current majority may have, although it may not directly align with ours, what will be beneficial to the success of this project is if we identify components within a project that complements areas such as economic development or environmental efforts or other components that they will too see the positive in, and that we can use that to our advantage. So just some thoughts to keep in mind as we go through these options. So I'll start with the multimodal access for the port to Lakeland Village and stormwater improvements. This idea has been a priority that Representative Griffey has shared interest in, and given that, we further inquired about the feasibility to build sidewalks along State Route 3 from Drum Street to Lakeland Village, and as part of that project, address stormwater runoff at Lakeland Village and the water quality issues at North Bay. So the idea is to really, our idea and our selling point, I would say, is we want to provide key pedestrian connection between the port's dock and the local businesses and restaurants, and while simultaneously making stormwater improvements. So last year I met with the Olympic Regional administrator, for WashDOT, and also a representative from the Department of Ecology, and we did run into some roadblocks that have to do with State Route 3. I'm not going to dive into that right now because I don't want to take up too much time. But given these challenges, Larry and I discussed this, and the port could instead consider building out a sidewalk on port-owned property where Drum Street ends and is located adjacent from the shore and parallel to State Route 3. So from there, the sidewalk could continue to Lakeland Village. I put a little visual in the report if you want to take a look, but pretty straightforward. This was Larry's idea. Kudos to Larry. The port would need to further explore this new idea and the options to create a stormwater component along with this area. I'll also add that if a sidewalk and a bike lane, let's say, is the focal point of the project, the port could seek funding within a transportation revenue package as a multimodal project. We could also seek funding within a capital budget. So those are the two options. I think this would be a viable effort for the port to pursue, and that's why I put it at the top of the list. I will let you all decide on whether you would like me to, if you would like to save comments and questions for the end, or if you want me to go over each idea and I can pause and we can talk it over. But really, this is to just start the conversation, and then you all can debrief and I can come back, or we can have a further conversation on the priorities that you have narrowed down. But I don't know how much time you guys have tonight, so I don't want to go overboard. So I can go on to the next, or we can stop, whatever works for you guys.
Let's go on to the next, Holly. We have a lot more things to discuss. So I think we can probably the commissioners can talk about this and then come up with some ideas that might work, and with your input as well.
Great. Okay. That sounds great. So the second I've listed is the idea to seek funding for the electric vehicle charging stations. This was shared with me, and if my memory is serving me, I believe Commissioner Jackson, am I wrong that you had shared this idea? It is, I'm right, yay. Okay, so, but yes, electric vehicles have become more prominent as a mode of transportation. EV charging stations could encourage travelers to make a stop at Allyn, spend time in town, while providing an additional revenue source for the port. So the Department of Commerce oversees the Clean Energy Fund, which provides grants through the Electrification of Transportation Systems program. So this can go to local governments, tribes, and retail electric utilities for electric vehicle charging infrastructure. I have more information on this grant within the report, and I can certainly dedicate more time to preparing the port for the application process if you also choose to move forward on that. The next is the idea that was brought to my attention and obviously needs to be addressed is the new well. So the Department of Ecology is requiring the port to drill a new well for the current water system, and the estimated cost for the project is roughly $500,000. Larry touched on this. Counties throughout the state have received funding through the American Rescue Plan, which can be spent on a handful of qualifying expenses through December, end of December 2024. But one of those is water infrastructure projects. So there may be an opportunity there if the port decides to discuss this project with Mason County, and if there is a willingness on their end to allocate some of the federal funding they have received towards the new well. Another option would be to request funding through the state's capital budget in 2022, which could take consecutive years to receive. And I'll just note that we are going into a supplemental budget year. So that means less funding opportunities than what we just experienced this year with the capital budget. So a couple of ways in which we could pursue this. And this is a more short-term need, as the port's deadline is to complete this is March of 2024. There are also a few grant opportunities that could be considered, both the Public Works Assistance Account and the Centennial Clean Water Grant Account. I could definitely look into further and share details on that as well. The third project idea is the North Shore Marina Park and the parking area on Hood Canal. So this is located across the street from the North Shore Marina, where there is currently the gravel area used for public parking. And the rest is just forested at this point. A building could be created in this space to lease out to restaurants and create a destination space for boaters to visit. And I know you all are very aware that there is currently a lack of restaurants or businesses in that area in general. And the port does not currently have use for that land. So another component that the port has an interest in is the expansion of the marina at North Shore and creating a gate to privatize the access. So though these improvement ideas have the potential to create economic development for the surrounding area, as well as directly benefiting the port, there are limited funding resources at the state level that would provide funding for retail type development, or that would provide the flexibility the port desires around public access for the marina. So I would say this is more of a long-term goal if prioritized, and I would recommend the port pursue a visioning type process for a project like this, so that we can help further coordinate on possible funding opportunities. And then the next is the shooting range, which I know has been an interest to the port for some time now. However, direct state capital budget funding for such a project is really not practical given the current priorities of the legislature. As I stated before, we dove into this list. It is in our best interest to be mindful of the current political climate as we select legislative priorities. But another idea is for the port to pursue funding through the RCO Firearms and Archery Range Recreation Program, which selects projects to fund every 2 years. I can certainly look into this as well, and there's some more detail within the report. And finally, the Sweetwater Creek Waterwheel Park. It sounds like you all are already coordinating with the PNW Salmon Center and applying and going through the application process. So that's great. I won't dive too far into that. So with all that said, you all have a lot to think about and discuss amongst each other. So this is really just to start the conversation. I plan to touch base with Larry once you all have had time to consider, and would also be happy to meet with you all again, so we can meet all in a group.
Great. Thank you, Holly. That's great. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Holly at this moment?
No, I just, that was a fantastic overview presentation. Very in-depth, but practical and focused, and I just, very impressive. Thank you. It really put some light to a lot of, just the big picture. I appreciate it.
Of course, of course. I'm going to just go over this next slide really, really quickly, and then I promise I'm done. So for next steps, you know, as reflected in this presentation, lobbying is indeed a year-round effort. So the accomplishments that we've really made thus far have required preparation and advocacy throughout the interim. So we have seen how effective that is, and it is greatly appreciated to have you all engaged throughout the year. So thank you, thank you, thank you. So a few next steps as we move forward and prepare for the 2022 session. I would encourage you, if you haven't already done so, to thank the legislative delegation for their hard work and especially challenging work this session. And unique to this year, we will be following the Redistricting Commission, who considers how to redraw Washington's legislative and congressional district boundaries throughout the state. I plan to provide updates within my monthly reports so that you can follow along and engage if you would like. I believe, and I think Larry's probably following this, but the second meeting for the 6th Congressional District public comment is on July 26th. Other questions on that, feel free to contact me. The 2022 session will begin on January 10th and will be the second year of the biennium. To prepare for that session, we will need to update the port's legislative priorities. The first step being to consider the list I have shared with you all today, and any others you may have in mind to bring to my attention. So with that, I will just say it is an absolute honor to advocate for the Port of Allyn. It's exciting to go through all of the accomplishments you all have made thus far and continue to tackle each year. Thank you so much for the opportunity to represent the Port. It really is such a privilege. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And thanks for your time. I know I spoke a lot today. But if you have any questions, feel free to contact me at any point, and I'll be in contact with Larry as well.
Thank you, Holly.
Holly,
Sorry.
is there an expert on House Bill 1310?
No.
I'm sorry
No.
to ask. And then, you don't, please don't answer. I get questions every night. So
No,
I don't think a lot of people even follow.
In no way am I an expert. I just am happy to share what the bill interprets. And yes, but in reality, it is much, much different. And I am completely aware of that.
But thank you very much. I don't think a lot of people know what just happened last year. So
Yeah, of course. Yep.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Holly.
Yep.
Well
Thank you,
done.
Greg.
And we'll keep in touch.
Sounds good.
Okay, the next item is discussion of the proposal by the representatives of the MV Kirkland. Who would like to go first? Ronnie? No?
Yeah. Well, hello.
The chair. Hello.
Hi.
Ronnie?
I
Okay.
hey,
don't
Ronnie.
I'm here, but this is Jason Ilaraza speaking.
Hey,
Am I
Jason.
muted? Hi. So I'd like to share, I serve currently as the Allyn Community Association president. In our last meeting, we discussed and presented the opportunity of the MV Kirkland joining us here, and we presented it to the commissioners. And what we did was committed ourselves to continue to explore the feasibility of having the MV Kirkland here as part of the movement and the mission of the Port of Allyn that represents economic development. And so what we've done in lieu of in the time that have passed. We have gathered some team members. I'd like to share who those team members are. Some of them were present at our last meeting, and some are new team members now. Bonnie Knight, of course, the former Port of Allyn director, Mr. Richard Bell, the former president of the Allyn Community Association, and Mr. Phil Steffen, which is a certified and qualified captain of a boat who is willing to join our team and has committed to assisting us with moving the boat, maintaining the boat, operating the boat, and such. And so what we wanted to do was to address some of the concerns of the commissioners. So thank you, commissioners, thank you, director, and thank you, staff of the Port of Allyn for having us and including us into your agenda this evening. What I'd like to share, some of the milestones. We consider the Kirkland to be part of the economic development in the sense that we know that if we bring a boat here and we can bring forth a community center, and this is something that the Allyn Community Association would take forth in addressing all the costs associated to bringing the boat here, in addition to addressing any concerns that the commissioners may have in the sense of whether or not the boat would take from the revenue that the Port of Allyn could generate from the gazebo and facilitating events at the park. One thing that we have discussed that would address that concern is that whatever revenue or profits that the community association or the boat would generate that would take from the gazebo, we would certainly profit share with the Port of Allyn, and that would be something that we could discuss later. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Thank
Hear
you.
you good, Ronnie.
All right. Thank you. And then I do, of course, who is going to operate and maintain the boat. With that, we have reached out to community members and we've connected with Mr. Phil, and we're going to give him an opportunity to speak as well, as far as what role he could play to assist us in bringing forth the Kirkland here and maintaining and operating the Kirkland. One thing I want to do is clarify some of the boat. So the boat is not what we spoke about earlier with 100 feet wide and 200 feet long. The boat is actually 100 feet wide, 100 feet long, and 38 feet wide. With a 7-foot draft, our vision is that the boat would serve as a museum, part of the museum. It's also part of the National Register of Historical Landmarks already. And I think it would be a fitting part of what Holly shared as far as economic development within our community, with the support of the Allyn Community Association. What I'd like to do is turn it over to Bonnie Knight, and she's going to speak a bit more about some detail or during our feasibility of the boat. And then we'll also bring forth Mr. Philip Steffen to speak about his expertise and how he's willing to help us further discover feasibility and implementation and sustainability of the boat being explore a 1-year proof and concept where we could revisit, give it a try, and revisit and see what it generates insofar as economic development for the community, revenue for the Port of Allyn, and also serving as a community center for the Allyn Community Association, and explore the idea of it being a museum and how the association could help in sustaining those efforts with volunteers as a museum, sustaining the efforts of making it available to the public for events, and also providing the port the monies or the costs insofar as power, insofar as wastewater, that we would cover those issues as well. With that, what I'm going to do is turn it over to Bonnie. I thank you for your time, and we appreciate being on the agenda this evening.
Thank you. Bonnie?
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not going to go into a lot of it because we're all, we already have talked about some of it. Some of the economic impact would be from bringing people into the area to see the museum because it is already on, the ferry is already on the National Historic Register. And that in and of itself will bring people. We're talking about weddings and different events that would use catering. And we're seeing the local restaurants as being the one that would provide that catering service, which is a big deal for them. And anytime you bring, they're going to possibly eat, get gas, stop at the store, anything that'll support the local people. They're just, that's pretty much it in a nutshell. They would bring people, we already get people that come down from Olympia, up from Olympia, just to go to the restaurants here. And I know that it would bring people from South Puget Sound to see this museum because it is going to be unique, covering the maritime or the mosquito fleet, which was active in Allyn from the late 1800s. So that's kind of the economic impact that primarily that we're looking at. It would also actually all of North Mason would benefit from it, but they also, I'm going to turn over to Phil because he can talk a lot about the possibilities.
And one thing I'd like to share is that Phil has great depth of knowledge insofar as the technical aspects, insofar as anchoring the boat, gangplanks, things that we can do that could make the boat feasible with the lesser costs insofar as the other options that could be presented. So I'm really grateful that Phil is on the call with us because he can discuss some of those issues or those concerns with us.
Just 1 second more, Phil. Just to say that we are still in the feasibility phase of this. That's all I have to say is we are still looking at this. It's not a done deal. Go ahead, Phil. Hi, Phil.
Okay,
Okay,
hello.
Phil.
Thought I'd turn on my camera. I'm sitting on North Shore right now in my boat. I think it's a great idea. I think it's actually doable without using the dock. And the more I thought about Allyn, first I was maybe not the best, maybe it'd be better on the hood, but there's a lot of things that Allyn can use that. A plus for Allyn for sure, because Allyn really needs a breakwater, and 100-foot ferry sitting out there with a gangplank to a dock to get on and off will actually help from the waves. I've sat on that dock before, and it's a rough dock. But the people that will come, and I've talked to the owner of the boat, and he's done already extensive work on the bottoms, all been redone, recorked. And I'm like 5 days into this. I met Barbara and I've been doing this a long time. And it's doable. There is some things that nobody's been able to tell me as far as, it's going to take maintenance. It's going to take somebody on it every day, cleaning windows, painting. But as far as a draw and as far as probably the community getting behind it, I used to build theme parks, Silverwood, at a big company, Magic Mountain, Knott's Berry, you name it. I have had a crew there. So I'm very building something and they will come, right from miniature golf courses that have been won big awards, been the best in the country. So there is a way. And I think it'll pay for itself. It's that initial, can we do it? And the beauty of this thing is you actually get to test it for a year. So I think it's a doable thing. I think you guys, is from what I haven't went and looked at it. Christian, depending on how this goes, I'm willing to drive down, go survey that boat, look at it. And I have nothing to gain from it, whether to tell you yes or no. But I will tell you if it's a solid vessel and something that you guys can do. But the draw will be huge, right down from even the way you put that thing in there. Maybe sometimes it's a big movie screen for movies from the beach. I mean, there's so many things, and you probably get the locals to buy little coins and pay for the maintenance on it, and you plant them all over the boat, and hey, I contributed. So I think it'll pay. The boat's relatively inexpensive for what you're getting, without looking at it. And I've been told, so to make that boat what they're saying that it is, would be, it'd probably cost you $1 million, $800,000 to find a vessel that will accommodate events, a restaurant, the museum. I mean, it's a big boat, so you can do a lot with it. And that's, I live here in North Shore, and I'd love to see this place here and more slips. And I do about 600 to 1,000 nautical miles a season. I leave in April. And the biggest thing here that I hear from all the big yacht boats and everybody, there's nothing to do here. If there was something to do, they would come. If there was a shuttle from North Shore to Allyn, you get trapped here. So that's the negative. Otherwise, this is the nicest place. I just came from the San Juans everywhere. There's nothing more beautiful than coming down the Hood Canal. Nothing out there, period. So that's all I got to say.
Okay, so I got a question for you. May I speak, Judy?
Yes,
Chairman
yes.
Scott? Okay, yeah, Captain Philip Steffen, is that correct?
Correct.
All right, so my question to you, I just lost your question to you is I'm confused because I thought you were the captain of the boat when it was down in Astoria or previously in Bremerton.
No.
Okay.
I'm a guy that came from Idaho, bought some
Okay.
land here, and been touring the Puget Sound for the
So
last 6 years.
So how did you meet Bonnie Knight and Ronnie in the group here at the Port of Allyn?
I was at lunch and I met Barbara,
Okay.
and I invited her down to my boat, and we got to talking, and I said, wow, I've been thinking about this restaurant and blah, blah,
Okay.
blah. I think there needs to be something down here. So literally last Friday is when I heard of or something. So I'm really new to it.
Oh,
But-
last Friday, got it. All right.
Yeah, I'm really
Sounds
new to
good.
the whole thing.
Would you be opposed to a background on yourself, like as far as references and things like that, to come into this picture as far as a big picture feasibility study we're doing, and just because my question is really it's a unique idea, and I love the idea, but why didn't it work in Bremerton and Astoria? That's so I've got a lot of questions.
Well, because it didn't work because nobody did nothing. They put out, I researched it all. I'm telling you, I designed and built theme parks, and they didn't do anything. Bremerton didn't do nothing. Nobody did anything to promote what they had. I'll tell you, you could put that thing out there and probably sell wedding parties at $10,000 a day, and you won't have enough. You'll be booked out just to do weddings. So
What boat are you on right now? What
for my
boat
boat,
are you on? Yeah.
I'm on a 54-foot Owens with a 16-foot beam. It cost me $250 an hour to run this boat.
Okay.
So
I mean, I knew you.
I'm a boat guy. My family we've had a boat company, Steffen Boats. We built Priest Lake Marina, 11th Street Marina in Coeur d'Alene. I ran 500 slip marina in Bayview, Idaho. Look it up, Scenic Bay Marina.
Now I get it. I
Yeah.
get it. You were on the phone with Mr. Capella trying to figure out how to get in there or what was going to work, but got it. Okay, thank you, sir. Thank
Yes.
One thing I'd like to interject a moment is that I do understand this could possibly be a milestone. I do understand that the port is a long-term seeking how they could get cruise ships in here in the Port of Allyn. So you could see this as a milestone that could be a part of that. You get this boat in here and test the waters. And that's just my say. I know nothing about boats. I'm just here as a volunteer and I serve my community.
Can I, Judy, can I respond to that last comment, because I cracks me up because the only reason why I got elected is that I got to bring cruise ships into Allyn, which I still haven't been able to do. The only thing I'm really concerned with, gentlemen, is the view. We get conversations where we're supposed to put a historic building on the old dock, on piers, and I hear people calling about the view. It's going to be blocking the view. And then we're going to put, we're going to put a 100-foot boat, captain, and sir, we're going to put a 100-foot boat out there. We're going to be blocking the view. Now, I understand as living on the water, there's nothing better than a view across the water, and then you get houses. But that's what I've been hearing. And so I may have some options, Captain, and how about, I may have some options because there's people that used to have businesses up on Hood Canal that have docks, and there are people that own docks. But what I'm concerned about too is that the Port of Allyn survives on weddings, venues, and a few other things. And I'm afraid about taking that funds away. And at the same time, government should never take away funds from private citizens. But I'm just worried about that. And then the last thing, Captain, if I could just finish, I'm worried about the destruction of our dock. And I do know about dock systems. And with that wind that we have, the northern wind, the southern wind, I'm very concerned about our dock. So I'll be quiet right now.
So I'll answer that. As far as an obstruction, if you look at that ferry, it's all glass and it's a beautiful boat. I mean, historic looking. I don't think it's going to really obstruct anybody. As far as the dock, what I suggested was to anchor it out there, whether it be 40 or 60 feet off the dock, and we can anchor that just like a barge in 4 points. It'll never move. And then we can gangplank it. So if the water would get so rough that gangplank would be moving, you would just close the boat for that day. But I'm pretty sure that boat sitting sideways in front of the new oyster house or something is going to be pretty appealing when it's all lit up at night. And it's just someplace, even if it did take some weddings, I think the people involved in this are willing to give up that revenue to make it fair to the port, so that all the port's going to do is diversify to have more things to come. So now think that ferry's sitting out there, and every day there's people going on the ferry. Now, if you went and put, say, 10 vendor booths out there, 10 by 10 spots that people could rent, I think you would get all kinds of craft people and stuff coming down more on the pier, which would draw more people, and it would be all local stuff. And you could rent those for $25 a day, $50 a weekend, whatever. I mean, I've seen this done in a lot of places, and it brings the people. They just want something to do. They don't care what it is. They come here, they're vacationing, they want to spend money. All we got to do is just give them a place to give us dollars. That's how I see it. So.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Commissioners, any other questions?
No, no, I don't have any questions, but I wanted to qualify myself here. I've been working for 30 years in and around the military on the water, and I have a merchant mariner document with a captain's license, inland, and a smaller near coastal ticket, and ran boats all around the Middle East in the last couple deployments that I was out there. Captain Stephen, I just wanted you to know, Captain Philip Stephen, that you've got my ear on this project, but I'm not totally sold yet. But
And also
I like-
think that boat is never gonna leave once it gets sit there. So it
Well-
ain't like we're gonna have to start it and run bilges and do general maintenance as if it's being
Yeah, no.
used.
I get it. So it just has to get laid out because we have responsibility to the community
Correct.
to vet it. And that includes vetting you, vetting the boat, vetting the business model. And I know that everybody wants this yesterday because of the cool factor. I'm just letting you know, I'm not putting any skids on it personally as a commissioner, but I got to see it all laid out. I'm getting pieces. I heard Bonnie Knight say, I've talked to them, given the information. It's got to be all together under one roof, bam, including the credentials of the boat. I've heard that it has all the credentials, but I got to see it. I got to see it all. So, I know what those credentials
I
are
don't
supposed to look
blame
like.
you.
No, I know what they're supposed to look like, and I'm just saying, I got to see it all. Okay?
Gotcha.
All right.
I think that's where we are, is just trying to pull all this stuff together. And now that we've got Phil on board,
Yeah.
makes a lot more sense than.
Well, you want us to do it right too, Bonnie, right? So we got to have it all.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It has to be right, or you don't want to do it because the liability be huge.
Yeah.
Oh, and you
absolutely.
have North Shore too, which is undeveloped. So you want to put a store here or something, you could put that boat here
Oh, I
faster
know.
than you can build a building.
Yeah.
And have
No,
the
you're
same
right.
thing. So
They're just out ready to play. You just got to draw them in. I get that, but it's got to be done right. So,
I spent 7 months down in Lake Havasu, and there was one guy, and I almost bought this boat that went out in the middle, and it was about a 50-foot houseboat, and he made hamburgers, he sold French fries, he sold sunglasses, and he made milkshakes, and he just floated out there. All the boats would come right to him. He didn't go nowhere. Yeah,
all right,
unbelievable.
my friend.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for
Yeah.
your input. I really
Yeah,
appreciate it. And we
brilliant.
look forward.
Thank you so much. That was
You guys
great.
have a good night.
Thank
All
you,
right.
One
Phil.
more thing is, in
Oh, yes,
Guernsey,
Bonnie.
they didn't have anybody really responsible for it. And that's the big part, that the ACA has a 35-year history of being able to manage things. And I think we're real serious about making sure that it's going to work for the ACA too. Because it may not work for us. We may not be able to do it. But we just want to be able to pursue the possibility, and, because I think it's a great idea if we can make it work.
Absolutely. We're listening. Hey, Captain Stephen Phillips, Philip Steve, I may just show up, surprise you out there in the North Shore.
Yeah, you do that. I'm here. I just live 8 blocks away, but it's so nice sitting here. I haven't been home yet.
Well, we do want to take a trip down there, and I think whoever commissioners, if they wanted to go too, I think that's a great idea. We have to see it. We have to know what we're doing.
Yeah,
We're going to try to arrange a trip down there to meet with
Yeah.
Captain Lynn and go from there.
that would be
Well,
great.
that's-
Keep me informed. I'd
Yeah.
like to try to do that, if that's
I
okay.
hope I can make it too, but I've set a date that works for all of us, right? Maybe?
And
Yeah.
you guys all got my number. Just give me a call anytime.
Yeah. What is your number? So I have it for right here.
Don't do it,
well,
don't do it on public.
No, not on
Please,
this,
please
not
no.
on the Zoom.
Bonnie has it. Barbara has it.
Okay.
The port has it.
Great.
Jason,
Leanne has it.
I don't. Okay.
well,
And
get it-
commissioners,
commissioners.
We do look forward to developing something that's more comprehensive that would meet Commissioner Sheridan's what he's voiced his concern about. I do understand, and we are just looking forward to collaborating, developing something comprehensive where we have a good sense of assurance that this is a good move for our community, and in the sense for the Port of Allyn's mission of economic development, and furthermore, the mission of getting cruise ships in here.
And
Thank you so
sir,
much.
if you could just do me one favor and tell everybody about blocking the view.
Right.
And I,
But
you
it
know,
isn't that much
I
bigger.
can tell you right now, there's no view to be blocked. It's a 100-foot boat at the end of the pier. And you look at the horizon, it disappears at the end of the dock, man. And all you're gonna see, you'll see the other side of the shore, except for a boat that goes by within 50 feet. Oh, there it is. It's back on the other side. That's it. That's all you're gonna miss, Commissioner. I promise you that.
Commissioner, just tell the other people that live down there when they're arguing about the oyster house, and then we can have a discussion.
They
So,
won't.
Right.
That's up the hill.
Right, yeah,
All
I
right,
would say,
so
I would,
this
Just
is
a
what you do. This is what you do.
I
You
guess
take a-
so.
No, you take a picture from the other side of the shore, and you take a picture from the dock, and you look out, and all you do is a math going, it's there. I already know. I know what that I know.
And
what
I'm
that
sure
footprint
those
looks like.
people know every time they get up in the morning and look across the bay. So
And they see a boat.
they see a structure.
cars on the water.
right. Well,
Okay.
I would share that the pier and the finger legs are there to be used by boats. And they
Yeah,
honestly, they really are
what I'm
not being
thinking.
used. So it would,
Unless,
considering
yeah.
that it
How
would
long
be
is your
used by
pier?
a boat.
300 feet?
How
Is that
long is
how
the
Well-
pier?
it's 300 feet?
what?
Is the pier in Allen, isn't it 300 feet long?
The
600.
length of it coming out.
600. So that gives you proportion. How big 100 feet won't be much out there.
Exactly.
It won't. It probably won't stick up much higher than the pier most of the time.
It'll
Mhm.
look like a jet ski in your backyard.
Exactly, for the oyster house.
I know.
Okay, folks, any other questions? And we can move on. We still have a lot of things to discuss.
Just one comment.
Okay,
Even though Jason looks like Ronnie Colburn,
yeah. Oh,
he's
sorry.
actually Jason Ilaratsa.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you,
Make sure that's
Jason.
clear.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. And we will keep going and get more detail.
Thank
It
you.
sounds more
so much.
intriguing to me. And, for me, my concern is the loss of revenue that keeps the port going, not to, cause any loss of revenue for you guys, but we do depend on that. There we go.
And my only comment on that is activity creates activity. It's all good.
Yeah, good point.
And it can be active all year long, not just during the summer.
Mhm.
And I'm
Um,
also not saying it's the go on my part. I've got concerns, but activity creates activity, and that's a good thing.
Thank you so
Yes.
much for considering it.
The next item is our budget review. And next one would be scheduling an executive session, and the next one would be the Allen Carey water system. But I want to ask, we could go back to old business real quick, if you don't mind, because I see that Mindy Harlow is here. And we had some questions in regard to Sweetwater Park. So commissioners, if you would rather to wait till the end, that would be fine. But with old business and the fact that Mindy is here, the question was in regard to the certification of the, went right out of my head, certification of the grant
The match.
application. So would you like to talk about that, or
Yeah,
what would you?
Commissioner Scott, what I would prefer is that the executive director, Mindy Harlow, gets to speak first. And then I think we need to table our executive discussion on the budget for an executive session. And this is a broad range idea. And we just let Mindy Harlow speak first, and then we do a budget meeting in executive session, and then we could talk about executive session where it's going to be.
Okay, well, executive sessions are specific for litigation or negotiation, so it can't
No,
be
I'm
the
just
budget.
trying to schedule it out.
Okay.
Special
Sure.
meeting.
Yeah, and
Okay.
that would be appropriate.
I'm ready for Mindy so that we get on with what her program is and what she needs to do. I'm on board with it. I'd like to see that.
Okay, and this is in regard to, again, old business, Sweetwater Park, because there was question in regard to the certification of the grant of the application. So Mindy, are you available? And there you are.
Yeah, I'm here. So I think the question was about the certification of the applicant match
Mhm.
and the items in on that match certification that are related to private donations.
Yes.
Yeah, so we have received multiple private donations for the project that the donors have asked to be anonymous. And so we are, not able to disclose that information because we are a private nonprofit organization. We received donations from donors who would rather remain anonymous than have their information published. So there's, multiple $1,000s that have been received from anonymous donors who would just rather remain anonymous. So I don't know what else I can say about that other than it's their privilege to remain anonymous. And, as a private nonprofit, we can keep that information.
Okay. The certification of applicant matched, if you don't mind, Mindy, can I show this to, because this is public information.
Yeah.
This is what the application looks like. I don't know if everybody can see that. These are the match. And if anybody has any questions in regard to that, then Mindy is here to answer those. Any questions? Commissioners?
I have a statement more than a question. I mean, legally, we're going to comply and with anonymity with regard to the donation. I mean, I understand some folks that might have a vested agenda regarding trying to delve into that, but we have a responsibility to the community and to that organization as well as to the donor to continue to follow the legality of. I mean, who wants to turn down money for a potential project that may benefit the community anyway? I don't understand that, but thank you, Mindy.
And plus the fact I might say the port has not received the donations. It's the
Right.
Hood Canal
That's
Salmon.
important.
Yeah.
Thank you for qualifying that. Super important. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, commissioners, any other questions? Ted? No? Okay. Thank you, Mindy.
I have one thing about this.
Yes.
Mindy and I just talked this afternoon a little bit. Sorry. Mindy and I talked this afternoon. I put my elbow on my keyboard, sorry. And we talked about this anonymous donor. As there's a person that is making quite a fuss about this and all but demanding to know who it is. It's not who this person suspects it is, I'm sure. But Mindy, if you could tell the group what you told me about this person today, I think it would be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. So this person is a person who is an elder member of our community who has recently been faced with her own mortality and has no family members to leave her money to. And so she has decided to leave money to something good in the community and saw that the Sweetwater Creek Water Wheel Park was something good that will happen in our community that she wanted to leave some of her funds to. So it's, again, she's someone who just really doesn't want her name to be out there because she does not want to have the attention drawn to her herself or her personal health issues.
So Mindy, can I ask you, have you gotten a plan from DOT regarding the reconstruction of the culvert?
Have I received what?
The plan from DOT regarding the real, okay.
No.
And you don't know if they're going to go up to the property, the Port of Allyn and the other property. You have no idea where it's going.
What I know,
those are the comments that I received. So.
What I know about that project is that they are planning to replace only the culvert at State Highway 3. They're not planning to do anything that is not on state-owned highway.
So you don't think they would do, because of that Sweetwater Creek, you don't think they would do a bridge there?
Oh, I don't know. I think that they are currently in the design phase. It will determine whether or not they're going to do a bridge in the future.
And Larry and Mindy and Judy, how would that affect our project?
I think it would actually enhance it, I think.
Yes, it would.
And so how much property would it need to take up with regards to building a bridge over Sweetwater Park or Sweetwater Creek with regards to that property?
Don't they usually put in the bottomless culvert?
I don't know who they
That's
are.
my understanding what that's going to be.
No
Yeah,
culvert.
generally.
Culverts don't, we're removing culverts in the state of Washington.
Well,
So we're trying to build a bridge to have salmon and and freshwater fish move up to their natural tributaries. So bridge over State Railroad 3, how much property would it take up on the porch property that we already got next to the elementary school and the other property? That's what I'm asking. And that's what I get asked. I'm sorry to be such a stick in the mud, but this is what I get asked.
Yeah,
So,
when you ask those questions, there's a third commissioner here, just so you know. Even if I don't have the answer, Commissioner
yeah,
Jackson.
you know what? I'm sorry. I don't know what
No,
you know
don't
about.
be sorry. No, we'll move right along.
I'm just asking the question.
Don't be
May I
sorry.
may I address something about that, Ted? Because you're kind of asking a question that really only DOT can answer. Because you realize that when they do put in those culverts, and I say a bottomless culvert, it really is kind of a bridge. They've done several on like State Highway 16, as you know.
Yeah,
But they are required, yeah, they're required to stay within their own property. So I think that's really what it is that they would have to stay within their own easements unless they purchase property to do that. That's how they usually do it.
It's my understanding it's one of those concrete rectangular structures that'll go under the road to replace the culvert that's there. It's not going to disturb any of our property or take any of our property for it. It's simply replacing what's under the road now. They're going to have to use our property to mobilize the construction of it, but that's all.
And
That's my understanding.
And the current structure is a box culvert, which has a bottom. And the problem with those culverts is that oftentimes the spawning material that is put inside of those culverts under construction blows out during high flow events, which happened with that culvert not long after the construction of that culvert. So replacing that culvert with a bottomless culvert would be a good solution. They really are required to have spawning material within the culvert span.
And so, Mindy, as you know, with my previous experience, I've talked to WDFW. They're talking about going all the way up into that property to expand the stream bed. Have you
Correct.
heard anything like that?
Yeah, the whole plan's available, Commissioner Jackson, just so you know.
Oh, thank you, John. But have you heard that, Mindy?
I haven't heard, as I'm not a landowner immediately adjacent to that culvert. If there's information that the port has that could be shared with me as a project partner, that would be great.
Okay.
I don't have that, so no.
You know, I've never been opponent of the property. I just concerned about the school district. So I'm sure Commissioner Sheridan could chime in with his experience on dealing with that. So, but I'm very concerned about our little space with the elementary school. And so, and you and I've talked about it. So I'll be quiet.
Well, yeah, I don't know everything about this, but I do know that the Sweetwater Park is a small piece of the big picture. I can tell you that. And there will be rerouting of the culvert up there. And that's in order to make it and accommodate the pond and hold for the pond to hold tight. What's wrong?
No, I'm just trying to figure out how you know that. I've been on this commission for 3 years and I don't know it.
I made my commissioner report. I've gotten information from opposing parties. Ken Van Busk, I never say his name right. I got his version of what's going on and why he's opposed. Okay, Van Busker. And then Brian Peterson, I mentioned that in my commissioner report that I get information on his passion. And and I received information from him. And I'm not pretending that I'm still looking at this myself, but it's interesting. That's all I'm saying. And yeah, I will make this available.
Thank you.
It's public. It's not private. And I realize, yeah, I'll make it available. It's totally
I have
public.
sent all of you the information I received from DOT a couple of months ago.
It's the same thing.
I can resend that if you'd like, and I'll send it to you as well.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anything else? Thank you, Mindy. I appreciate you hanging in there.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me to the meeting. I appreciate
Okay.
being able to talk about the project.
All right. Okay, the next on the agenda, as you had said, do you want to do the mid-year budget review for another meeting, or you want to take a look at it? We do have the information in front of us if you wanted to take a quick look.
I'd like to say something about this. You know,
Sure.
we have about a little over $100,000 in reimbursements to put back into the budget that isn't there now.
Mhm.
So if you'd like to do the review either at the next meeting or set a special meeting for it, after we get that done, I think it would just present a more accurate picture of the budget.
Well,
Yeah,
I
and I
think
have
like-
a lot of entries, miscellaneous entries to do from the pay station from June, so that would help.
Okay, well, let's table this until probably the next meeting, next month.
Okay.
Does that sound acceptable to everybody?
Yes, it
Okay.
does. Thanks, you.
Okay. John, is that acceptable to you too?
Yeah, we're talking, I think there's no changes. It'd be probably the 2nd of August. Is that correct? Or
Correct.
are we looking at the first Monday again? Okay, all right.
That's
Yeah,
correct.
I'm good. I just want to make sure we had some changes this month, so I'm just qualifying that. Thanks.
Okay, all right. The next item would be the discussion of the scheduling of the executive session. So that's what we would need to do, is take a look at our calendars and see when we are available. And next. Larry, question, when are we meeting with, there's a couple things. We're meeting with our lawyer in regard to Washington Water Services.
Yeah, that's one meeting. Joe is out of town this week.
Okay,
And he is the one that's going to be doing that with us. So I would say that it's not available until the week of the 19th. And the same thing with scheduling the executive session. What I'd like to do is get his availability and kind of go from there, unless you all just want to set a time now, and it'd be up to him to be there.
well, let's wait on him if you don't mind,
Okay,
commissioners. I
what
think-
I'll do then is I will, when he comes back, I will ask him for available dates and I'll share those with you all.
Okay,
Okay?
yeah, that would be fine. If that's okay with the rest of you commissioners.
Yeah, if we got some window, if he comes back with some couple different dates, that'd be good, as opposed to this works for him. But that
Okay.
will work for me. Yeah.
All
Okay.
right.
All right.
Okay, the next item is the discussion of the Allyn Cary water system and the request to use the port's well for the comparison purposes. Any comments yet? Thoughts? John,
I'd like
you
to
wanted
make
to
a-
look,
I'd like to make a motion to deny that.
okay. Do I hear a second?
Oh. No, I would like to see us work a little bit harder to approve the carry system as a government agency. We need to work with private people. I'll vote no.
Well, we haven't voted yet, because
Well,
I
he
will
just
second
voted
it.
aye.
Yeah, I will second it. So with that being said, all in favor of denying it, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Point of order,
All-
Mr. Chairman,
All opposed?
there's discussion.
Yeah, oh, we can discuss, but
Yeah, I'd
it's,
like to hear John's reasoning.
okay, John?
My reasoning primarily, Mr. Carey, Brad Carey, is that correct? Or
Yeah.
is that what I'm speaking? Because okay, because I didn't see it pop up there. My primary reasoning is it's become and looking at the history of this whole thing, it's becoming to the point where it's not going anywhere, and it's not it's becoming an expensive proposition. I mean, there's been a threat to the Port of Allyn from yourself, which is part of this. Like, for example, you chimed in, right? So you have a vested interest as a Carey member of the family to chime in, and I understand that. But the threats to the port, I don't think, and I don't feel that it's going to be beneficial to the community tax dollars that have been spent over a long period of time to be where we're at right now as a port. To be good stewards of that money, to be where we're at, to service the community the way it's being serviced right now. And I also don't agree with the letter that I read that you presented tonight, which is why I read that. There was a little mix, and I realized that I read the different letter, but I was really focused on that letter. That's why I read it without thinking, then realized it was a different letter than the original letter that was asked to be read. But it was appropriate because that's not the take on the last meeting. I just see everything being twisted around and turning around, and you talk about all these other people in the community who are being served so well by the water system that the Port of Allyn has been serving for so long. And the only people opposed to that are the new kids on the block. Excuse me for saying that, so to speak, because we've already got everything we need to do what we got to do. And you don't have facility, that say you, but the system that your family does not have the system to service the fire department. We've had it and it works. And that's why we're where we're at right now, because we did it right the first time. And anyway, I don't want to undo all the tax. Are you going to let me finish the question you had?
I just asked, what's your reasoning? I don't understand. Is it competition?
I'm just explaining myself. I'm opposed to creating a situation where you get a hold of our water system that the taxpayer dollars have had and a vested interest in our efforts as a port for them. There's them, not just you or us. There's them, the taxpayers. So I'm opposed to it. And that's all I got to say about that.
Now, you understood Larry said that the water system is being funded by the ratepayers and connectors, not the taxpayer. You understand that? You heard that tonight, right? Separate funds.
Brad,
Well, that's a misquote.
I'd like to clarify that.
Thank you,
I
Larry.
never said that. Go back and watch the tape. What I said is we have separate accounting systems for the water system and for our general fund. Go back and watch the video. That's all I said. I didn't say how it was being funded or anything else.
Right. So are my tax dollars?
Okay.
Yeah.
Jeff has his hand raised.
You're one of 9,000, but okay, I'm done with my reasoning. Thank you.
Jeff has his hand raised.
Thank you.
Jeff?
Yes, thank you. I'm a little confused because the last meeting, we, and I use we broadly, the port and its attorney and the port commission agreed to review, first of all, if there was gifting. And then second of all, to have the discussion whether whether the port was ever going to allow this by anybody, forgetting whether it's me. And then if we got through those two hurdles, then we'd look at, whether we would allow our water system to be, to have a contract with the port to use as an observation. Where did we in other words, there's been a big jump here between what we agreed, what the port agreed, and here, which I can only constitute as a meeting between parties to decide to move in a different direction.
Okay, I can answer your question on that because you've been given an opportunity we've been given a couple opportunities, but I'll focus on the latter one.
But
I'm just saying, you didn't like the agreement and you could have.
You cannot have contracts that reference other parties in them when you're trying to do an observation test. You cannot have
that agreement.
It's a pile of crap.
Okay, I understand your feelings on that, but
well, I mean, you don't create an agreement that says we disagree.
Huh.
What in the hell is the port thinking?
I agree to it. I don't get your reasoning, Mr. Carey.
What I'm saying is,
I don't get your reasoning that we put together something that would be a disagreement with your agreement. Explain that to me.
It's sitting. Go read the text, and it says in there on clause 11, as I recall, that the port agrees that there's a disagreement, and I'm saying, what the hell is that in a contract? And I'm not asking you to be the legal opinion on it. I'm just saying,
I'm
we
not.
went from a month ago saying a cooperative spirit, where we went from a point of saying, let's look and see to make sure there's no gifting. All the Port Commission was on board with that. And then we agreed to resolve that one way or the other. And then if that could be worked out, then we'd look at the next hurdle, which was basically,
Right.
is the port from this point forward going to look at allowing anybody
Well,
to use the
I don't-
observations?
I understand.
So is the port made a decision then in this context to go ahead and not have any use anybody else's observation well? In other words, you're
Well,
not going to let the port system be used as an observation anymore.
It shouldn't stop you from doing what you already were doing. I am voting and denying that option to use our wells in observation.
But you've had no discussion on it. So all I can assume is the board either met to.
No,
met-
we have not met, Jeff. What you saw is what you saw, and he's had the ability to look at the documents.
Yes.
And again, like I said, our last meeting, we know what the lawyer was saying, leaning towards. And okay, but we haven't heard anything in regard to gifting of anything yet. I mean, I just, for me personally, it's the DOE said that you can go ahead and do your application without the test well. You can do that.
That's what I'm saying. It's all in our court. I mean, in my opinion, and I'm not giving a legal opinion, I'm giving my opinion as a commissioner with what I understand that I've read.
All I can take is what ecologists told me, what the tribes have told me, and said, okay, we need to do a test. What the hydrologist.
So let me ask you this. How come we don't need to test your well in order to figure out this is going to work? I mean, to twist things around a little bit. It's because we've already been in the business a long time.
No, it's not, because the port did not follow regulations back in 2009 and 10 on the issue.
That's your opinion.
The tribe was pissed that you guys got your water rights without.
The tribe's happy with us.
Well, we have documentation that we were accepted.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying with the tribe, that you did not go through the process. Yes, you acquired the water rights certificate permit to withdraw water, but you did not.
The Squaxin tribe agreed to that, though.
No, they did not.
Excuse me, commissioners, Larry.
Yes.
Would it be appropriate just to have Brett and Jeff just come in and talk to the commissioners?
No, this is a public meeting.
It would require.
No, in an executive meeting.
No,
they cannot.
It would not.
No,
it's not appropriate.
Could I weigh in on one thing? I just don't understand why the port's not out trying to help businesses thrive. That's what really is disturbing.
But we also have a fiduciary responsibility for years of taxpayer dollars being collected to do what we're doing and what the water system has. I feel if you want to know how I feel about this, I think that it's been turned around a bit. And I'll tell you why. The bullying and everything else. I mean, every time the port sneezes, there's a problem. And I think people should choose their battles carefully, that what's important. That is a sidebar, but it's part of the equation. And here we have a situation that every time, well, particularly the water, that's the biggest part of the deal with y'all, is that everything we've done, I'd say we, now that I'm a new commissioner, but I say we as a Port of Allyn for way before my time, have done a lot of work to be where they're at with the water system. And you don't have the water system set up the way the Port of Allyn has. And you're going to have to navigate through that, Jeff Carey. I'm speaking through you, Brad. Jeff's there. You're going to navigate through that and follow the legal steps to get where you want to go. In the meantime,
John,
I don't know what.
You should read the record.
Okay, Brad, Earl has his hand up. He's been courteous to have his hand up. Earl, go ahead and speak.
Let me just finish for a second. John,
No, Earl has had his hand up. Earl has his hand up. He's had it
Okay,
up.
I
Thank
can
you.
wait, you guys. Larry also had his up before mine, so I can wait until they're both are done. It's okay. I've been
Okay.
here for way too long.
I just want to clarify the gifting question. And I had forwarded all this on to you, but this is from our lawyer. It says, we completed review of the issue of whether Jeff Carey's potential use of the port's well for testing would be considered a gift of public funds. If the port gets all test results or other reports from the monitoring, that would be sufficient consideration to avoid a gifting claim, as there would be some value to the port for that information. That's the answer to the gifting question. So.
Okay.
That's
Earl?
perfect.
Yeah, I've been listening a little bit off and on from people in the community about this issue, and it just really kind of brought it up tonight. First of all, I want to say that I think working with, you have too many different water districts up there to begin with. To actually be working together, in my opinion, would be a good thing, because I think that there's going to be enough growth where you're all going to run out eventually if you don't figure out how to make it work. But my biggest concern is, and I want to get back to you, Commissioner Sheridan, is as a North Shore resident, one of the things that I've been really looking at is the increase in my property taxes. And, it's pretty vague on what I actually look at, and I haven't done a public records request or asked for it yet, but are you taxing us here on North Shore for a water district in Allyn? And how does that, my taxes are not going towards any water district that you're providing for the Port of Allyn in Allyn.
We run it off of the revenue from the water system.
So how did it originally get established? You had to have a dollar value to actually go. I mean, I'm in the water business. I own 7 of these Class B systems. I have about 70 or 80 hookups myself. It costs money to drill a well. It costs money to hook them up. It costs money to have a meter to make sure that. So where did that initial budget start?
It started with a loan from the IDD, and which was paid back.
So that's a loaded,
By the
really
water.
good. That's a really good question, Earl. And what I like about that question is number one, you understand it, right? Even, and I must say, in some respects, better than myself. But the biggest thing that the reason why I feel the way I do, okay, is because the Port of Allyn's been collecting money for a long time. I don't mean like over amounts of money, but just the monies that have been put in place to service the community because it needed it. There was nobody else doing it. And so we're not the only ones in the water business.
Well, I was paying connections to Lakeland Village on homes that I was doing and being part of, 15, 20 years ago. So I know that I'm not part of your water systems there, but I know that there's multiple water systems. There's also a bunch of private Class B wells in the area. My biggest question that I would like answered, I'm already paying enough in taxes as it is, being a landowner here on North Shore on the water. I just got my new assessment. It's gone, higher and higher every year.
Okay.
Am I subsidizing a water system? And if I am, do you have plans to extend water to North Shore?
No, I can't speak to that. I've never heard of that. It's a twofold question. So I don't know that. And I would say no to that latter part of the question. But the first question is, I'm going to have to defer that to Larry or Judy or one of the other commissioners because I don't know that taxpayer dollars are being collected from all 3 districts.
The name is Ted.
Well, like Leanne said, though, the funds, well, Leanne or Larry, you could also explain.
The developers pay the connection fees.
Yeah.
The developers pay the connection fees, which gets put right into the water fund from the water. And then we have our monthly service fees from the customers. And that's it.
And the increase was from grants, not through port taxes.
Oh, I see. Okay. So anyway, so I see why he's confused because I answered it incorrectly, Earl. So when I say taxpayer dollars, I'm talking about the community that's actually being serviced. That I spoke, I incorrectly spoke. Okay.
Well, that's what was confusing me too.
Yeah, because if I'm
Same difference. I'm just
taxing-
saying,
if I'm being taxed for a service that you're just
Okay.
self-regulating to a grouut
okay,
within the whole, I got a serious problem with that.
yeah,
Yeah.
You're not, you're
you're
not.
not, you're not. I'm actually, I'm just speaking, when I say taxpayers, I don't mean like we're taxing
Well,
people.
there's ratepayers on a system, and then there's taxpayers, which we're all taxpayers.
That's correct.
I
So,
I think John meant ratepayers, and I'll say
well,
this. I'll
now
say
that
this,
I know,
system
I know
is
the better,
self-sustaining.
I know the better term, Earl. You know, I'm hanging myself out there on that one. So it is the ratepayer. So still, the Port of Allen's been collecting these monies from people that are being serviced, and to facilitate better service all the time. So that's all I got to say about that. I'm sorry about
when
that.
I get my property tax evaluation, I just have the Port of Allen levy rate on there.
Okay.
How do I get the breakdown of where that money's going?
Our
Oh.
budget.
Yeah,
So
we have
you know,
funds.
So everybody, so okay, so
can
that's
show you the
real
monthly
simple then,
report.
because I've got
Yeah.
4 or 5 other neighbors that were asking the same question, and I'll just give
And
them.
no tax dollars are being used for the water fund. The water
No.
is completely separate. And if you want, I can get you the county reports that show that.
We don't, I trust you guys right now. I've been on here. I had things that I wanted to say at the end that had nothing to do with the other 2.5 hours. So I want to just end my comment now. And I hope you guys can figure out your water situation. And I do believe that private parties should have a preference over government being in control of the, you know, or working in unison. That would be a good thing too. I really see that there's been balance there before, or a water district being created has also been a good idea where they can levy and get funds to buy out private parties or whatever. But anyway, I'm done saying anything about the water for right now.
Okay. Yeah,
Thank you.
there's
Other
other
things I
options.
wanna
Thank
talk
you,
about.
Mr. Idling. Okay.
Thank you for clarifying, Mr. Sheridan or Commissioner Sheridan.
Yeah, thank you.
Larry, your hand is up.
Yeah, I'd like to clarify a couple things for Earl. The water system is self-sustaining. You are not subsidizing it, which I know was your question initially. So I want to be sure that you understand that. It is a separate fund that funds all the water operations. It doesn't come out of the general fund.
All
So,
tax dollars go into the general fund.
yes.
So if you don't get $500,000 in grant funding, how are you going to pay for your upgraded well system then?
With the system is self-sustaining. We will either, pay for it out of revenue that the system generates over a course of time. We may get a USDA loan. There's a number of options available to us to fund this. So it's not like we're going to say, okay, Earl, pony up some money. That's not what we're going to do here. So just so that you're comfortable with that. Other than that, the whole idea about, one water system in Allyn isn't going to work. Washington Water has their system. They are not interested in selling it. We did put a deal together to acquire Mr. Carey's system about a year ago, and about an hour before the paperwork was due, he backed out of the deal. I don't know if you're aware of that.
No, I don't need to. Larry, I appreciate the back history, and if I can ask for a public records request, or I could ask to meet with you guys. But we've been on here for 2.5 hours, and there's still a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I think that both Brad and Jeff, you're not probably done dealing with them anyway, so I think we can move on. But thank you, Larry, for giving me a little update on that, and thank you for not using our tax dollars on North Shore to subsidize something that's 10 miles away from us or more, 30 miles.
Sorry for that misspoke, but that's not what I meant, but thank you.
Thank you too, Commissioner. Thank you, Larry.
Okay. Well, there is a motion that's been seconded. John, do you have anything more to say?
No, Commissioner Scott, I do not.
Ted, do you have anything more to say?
No, I do not.
Okay. Well, all in favor of denying the use of the port's well for comparison
observation.
purposes? For observation. Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Oppose.
Okay. Motion passes. So we move on to public comment. 3 minutes, please.
Let Jeff go first, or whoever
Okay.
is there. Or Marsh is there.
Jeff,
So is it okay to talk?
yes.
Okay. Several things. One is, taking it last first. Well, I have respect for Larry and what he's done and helped on the port. The issue of the contract between Department of Health, the port, and us, and our water system, is not being, well, it's basically being misrepped. I canceled the agreement a day or two ahead of time because we're not coming up to the same numbers. We later discussed it hours before, probably about a day before it was supposed to terminate. I gave Larry some options. I presented some options. He presented those to the Department of Health. And in the end, the Department of Health said it would only work if the water system would be totally absorbed by the port. In which case I said, no, I'm not interested in doing that. So to inference that, the 11th hour that I change a deal or something, that's not correct. Another matter, still related to the water system. The port needs to get its act together on its water adequacies. What I mean by that is, you need to look at your plan. The plan designates that you cannot purvey currently water above 140 feet in elevation. And yet you gave water adequacies to houses that were going at 165. That's the problem with low water pressure on that. You're only 40 feet above those houses. 40 feet translates to just around 20 pounds pressure. You open a fire hydrant, you don't have any pressure. So, for all the inference that the port's doing a good job and run the water system, I think the port really needs to take a look at what they've done, how they've been doing it, and look themselves squarely in the mirror, because my observation is it has not been that way. And, in the end, if you look at over the years I've been around the port, well, there's been disagreements about different things through the years. But generally speaking, I've backed the port, I've helped the port, I've worked at different easements, I've worked at different property issues when the port put up its tank, helped the port in a number of different areas all through the years. But as soon as, up through 2016 or 17, the port wasn't making any money with its water system. You know that, Larry, as well as anybody, because you and I had a discussion that we both had water systems running in the red at that point in time. So I think there's been a lot of misrepping and continues to be a lot of misrepping by a lot of parties here. And also, for the record, the water system is not any part of Brad's or any part of the other members of the Carey family. It's a sole nonprofit corporation. It's not a charitable nonprofit, but it is a nonprofit corporation. So, and it has none of the other family members other than my wife, as you can check the state records, doesn't have anybody else listed on it. So it will stand on its own. It's part of a whole system to try to, bring road service, water service, stormwater support, what have you, up in the upper part of the Platte, where all parties or most parties in this meeting have not yet really faced the music and addressed it. And, the whole reason the port's even able to provide water in that whole area isn't because you got the tank up there. It's because Debbie and I put $90,000 to get the damn sewer up in there. Had we not done that, you guys would have been up, what creek. And so what I'm saying is, if you look at my record my track record with the port, I've done more to help the port than almost any commissioner or any party that's on the private side than anybody. And yet you guys, the commissioners are, pouring to me. You're not shooting straight. And then when I bring up something, it's, it gets reconveyed, a different approach. And, and I'm just sorry that, we have to end it in that note. So
I have a question for you, Mr. Carey. So on that being said, I am aware that this is you and your wife's company. What is your brother's interest in taking that fight up on your behalf? The bullying and the threatening of the port, and it just goes on, and it's not playing nice. It's not working with the port. I understand and I respect what you're saying, but that's a sidebar. But I just got to say that's not helping matters at all.
Well, first of all, like anything in life, we all have in business, we end up with irate customers. Okay.
Takes a lot of time up for the port business in order to do the right thing.
I'm just saying, I'm making a point. We all have irate customers, okay? From time to time.
We have one.
Let's just put Brad in that category for a moment.
Okay.
Is the port professionally dealing with the matter? I'm looking at some of the emails. It wasn't my objective. All I told him was what was happening. He saw what it meant to him. I said, I gotta work water rights. I gotta work these other things. I'm not part of this. I'm not part of any action he's thinking or talking or whatever you guys are doing in the executive session.
I just still think there's a win-win situation. The show hasn't stopped because you can't do an inspection or do an observation on our well, Mr. Carey. It hasn't stopped. It's just that we don't want to create a situation where we get more and more entangled in something that should have been already resolved, which it hasn't. That's totally where I'm coming from.
You do realize in the beginning, and I want to cut I know I got my time limit here, but
you're at 7 minutes. Let's wrap this up.
I interrupted.
I'll just say this, in summary this. Remember, when you first created the water plan in 2003, it was commercial. I had to make a choice whether we're going to do something residential. I set up a water system. I went for water rights. Then the port comes along for water rights. Then the port later on, years later, like 08, 09, somewhere in that time frame, decides with no legal finding, just decides we're going to provide water to everybody. That's a very, not a very straight way to work. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay.
Turn.
Brad, keep it short if you would, please, because we have Marcia, we have Bonnie.
Well, Marcia, I'll defer to Marcia if you like for a moment.
Okay, Marcia.
You gotta unmute Marcia.
Marcia's muted.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
while we're at it, we have 14 or 13 and a half minutes left of our meeting time.
Okay. So please keep it quick. Marcia?
I just would like some clarification on the lease of the dock. We're residents on the North Shore Road and live not too far from the Port of Allyn dock, where they have at least to a party boat that will be having events all throughout August. I'm concerned about safety. I'm concerned about regulations that are that should be in place to protect the residents as well as the people that are part of this. I just need a little bit more information as a neighbor.
Can I address that?
Yes, please.
14 minutes.
At this point in time, we have not leased any space to a party boat. And I'm sure I know which boat you're referencing, nor have we had any discussions with them. They are not parked at our dock outside of our DNR lease. So, we have nothing to do with them at this point in time, nor have we had any discussions with them.
Okay. Interesting. Thank you. I had thought that had happened.
Okay.
Thank you, Marcia, for your concerns. Thank you.
As a neighbor, could I also,
Yes, Earl?
so has the dock been leased out to anybody other than just a party boat? But is the dock leased out at all like it was last summer?
No,
Okay, so there's not any immediate leases.
no, there are not. You know, we do have, you know, people that
Mortgage customers.
Well, mortgage is different than what took place last year.
Yes, no, there's nothing in the cards like took place last year at this point in time, nor have we discussed it with anyone.
Okay, so my 3 minutes are going to run quick, so I just want to make it very simple. As a shareholder in the Port of Allyn, as a taxpayer and residents here, I would like to make sure that that doesn't happen again unless we are actually abating by the law and that there's enough life jackets for everybody that's on the dock, that the dock is actually up to code to accommodate such an event. Last year witnessing, there was several hundred people on there, all intoxicated, extremely intoxicated. I don't mind having a good time, maybe once a year, twice a year, but it went on for 6 or 7 weekends in a row till late. And I am actually a class member of the class action reps, speaking on behalf of many of these, actually, as having the concerns that actually are also fighting against the gravel mine that's going in behind here that we've been successful in winning without your public support, which I'm going to ask for later if it continues. So one of the things that I do want to bring up is that this is being heavily watched by a lot of the landowners here. And hearing about a restaurant as well is probably not going to be a very popular topic with the majority of the landowners that live here, reside here, and like their peace and tranquility. So I don't know if you've done an actual outreach to the landowners here yet, but before a restaurant gets kicked up to number 2 or 3 on the list, I'd actually see how favorable it is to the actual landowners. And in doing so, to make sure that your accommodations are going to be suitable, such as your road ingress, egress on a blind corner. We'd like to see, and we've been trying to ask, and Larry, you did a very fantastic job several years ago, trying to solicit the commissioners, Mason County commissioners, to lower the speed limit. We still need that lowered. Without the gravel pit, without the restaurant, you still have a liability issue of people walking across from the parking lots to your moorage dock and your boat ramp on 2 blind corners. And we would like to see the actual speed limit drop to 20 miles an hour through this area. With that,
Earl, if I can jump in real quickly, I've been advocating for that speed limit around the Port of Allyn for over 20 years. And I think you know that.
No, I know you have.
And so I've been, not only as a state employee and a state law enforcement officer, I've been trying to reduce that speed limit. So
one of the things that I would like to ask you, Commissioner Jackson, is we would be more than happy to help facilitate with our individual group that represents several hundred landowners here on the North Shore to potentially even write to our commissioners or have the attorney write to our commissioners to try and expedite this, to figure out why is it not lowered here, but yet at mile marker 17 down the road at Summertide Resort, it's 20 miles an hour. Tahuya is 20 miles an hour. There's a lot of areas that we would like that could be done here. So if we can help,
you know what, Mr. Eddings, and I'll tell you one more thing is that signs really don't matter because we got 50 mile an hour signs, 60 mile an hour signs on I-5. How many people really obey by them? But at the same time, we need to buffer that corner when we're pulling boats out. So
I agree. I've watched living here on this corner several every major weekend. There's almost an incident every weekend. It's not like once a year, it's every week.
I know.
So
I've worked on this for a year or more than that, Earl. You know that. What I would suggest is you and your neighbors put together a petition that you could present to the county commissioners at a county commission meeting and just say, you know, and I believe, I can't speak for the commissioners here, but I believe they would all agree that that needs to happen. Otherwise, they wouldn't have allowed me to go ahead and pursue this to begin with. But if you put together a petition, and, we would support that.
Yeah.
So Mr. Idlings, man, I'm going to tell you right now, as far as that project that's on the table, as far as long-term, of course, but the restaurant idea and everything else, I personally would not be moving forward with that without complete, the community needs to be on board with it and then see the value in it. And on top of that, just like the resort farther down the road, you got to slow down to just about nothing to get through there because it's a safety issue. That would have to happen. So,
We have 7 minutes left to get other public comment.
I'm done with all my comments. Thank you, commissioners. Thank you, Larry. Thank you, Leanne.
Bonnie, did you have any comment?
I was just gonna say on the Sergeant Oyster building, we got thumped one more time. Our guy that had said he was gonna do the siding, Barry can't get hold of him. So I'm working with another contractor that he's looking at possibly starting in 2 weeks. Cross your fingers.
Okay.
Just kind of a history thing, because I was around there for so many years. The Industrial Development District funding was voted in by the people way back in the 80s. And they collected that over 6 years, and it's been sitting there since 1993. And it was originally kind of for the sewers. It's to do, infrastructure is basically what it's for. And when they decided to get into the water system, and this is like 98, 97 when this started, when the port got ready to move ahead, it borrowed money from that fund, the Industrial Development District funding, which had been sitting there for almost 20 years, 10 years. And they have paid it back. That's what the water system, the fees and that are paying that money back. So it's just within the port. And they've done that quite a few times, borrow money from that fund. Rather than pay a bank interest, they pay the port, pays itself interest. And that's a really good way to manage the money. That's just how that came about.
Cool.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else? Brad?
Yep. All right. Yeah, just briefly. So with John's comments as to why we're pursuing the port on the water violations we feel are happening, it's real simple. When we see something going wrong, we see a violation, we feel that it needs to be discussed, needs to be addressed, needs to be acted upon. In the case of the port, we feel that it's not willing to sit down. There's no factual disputes here. It's simply a legal question. And I've presented in writing. The record is clear. Let's get a legal finding or sit down with a mediator, retired judge. You're not bound by a mediator's decision. Someone that interprets the law. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a judge. You guys aren't either. And let that party that, enforces those statutes explain that. Now, so what I sensed in John's decision tonight was he was trying to, it's kind of interesting to watch. He was trying to penalize Jeff because, hang on, let me finish, John. Penalize Jeff because of my activity. John doesn't know me, I guess. And, Jeff is completely separate from me. In other words, my objective is to see the port comply with the law. Whether Jeff's there or not, doesn't matter. In other words, what matters is, are they violating the law? And if they are, then we expect them to comply with the law. And if they refuse to, let me finish, John. If they refuse to, then we, at the very least, if we won't sit down and mediate it, then let's move for a show cause hearing and have a Superior Court judge rule on the legal finding. It's real simple. Now, I'll also say something else. John brought up an interesting point. John, first of all, felt that the taxpayers were paying, and then he corrected himself on the funding the water system. I understand that. It's ratepayers. I understand that. So here's the beauty of the argument. Now, everybody concentrate. On this argument, you don't need to be smug about it. What happens is that when the ratepayers are funding it, it's the ratepayers' basic asset. So the question you have, ask yourself, John's concerned about not getting the ratepayers' investment back to them, so to speak. But let's say Washington Water operates that system, or PUD1 operates that system, or Lakeland Village Water operates that system, or YRAC Water operates that system. The ratepayers still own that system and are still—
You have 30 seconds.
Yeah, are still getting their money's worth out of it. Nothing is lost. So the argument that John puts forward fails. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I just need 15 seconds. And I'm just trying to articulate, and I understand your pushback on that, just for whatever it's worth, is basically I did correct the rate. The people using the system are taxpayers. I use that rather loosely, so I didn't mean that. But that being said, that was not my reasoning for what you said, like punishing your brother and Jeff Carey. That was a question to him, like, why are you chiming in on this when this is something, because I just want the facts. I want it direct. I don't want any emotional stuff in order to sort through everything. And I
What
made a
does it matter?
decision.
What does it matter?
It was
That's enough, Brad. Let him finish.
it was a curious question because you've been bullying the port for a long time, even in the short time I've been here. And I'm like, it's not doing this whole situation any favors, because every time we sneeze in a short time I've been here, you bring a hurricane of emotion into it. But it's a sidebar, because that's not my reasoning for what I chose in my motion. So you know, for the record, that's
But
all
you
I got
do
to say
understand
about that.
the funding that's ratepayer funded, then they lose
Okay,
nothing.
we have
regardless who
1 minute
We're
left
done.
to wrap this meeting up, and everybody's had their 3 minutes plus.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I would like to move to adjourn, and I want to thank you, everybody, for participating, even though it's been tough. I mean, it's been tough.
Well, it's
So-
gonna get
You can go to
easier.
Allyn
Thank you
Days.
very much.
Don't
Thank
forget
you.
Allyn Days this weekend.
Okay, yes,
Have a wonderful weekend. Thank you all.
thank you.